Hello and thanks for staying with us. This is Focus Nigeria. My name is Amechi Anapwe. Now, the Nigerian state that turned 65 years 2 days ago is facing challenges in multiple fronts, still under the yoke of achieving nationhood. Amidst the diversity in the country, other problems ranging from security and economic development still abound. We will review Nigeria's journey towards nationhood on our discourse today. We'll continue with that. And my guest is Dr. Godnoz Igali, chairman of the Niger Delta Forum, Pandef. He has been a career diplomat, a bureaucrat, political scientist, author, and statesman. Before we meet with him, let's update you with topical national issues. Now, the European Union delegation was at the Independent National Electoral Commission, Abuja, on Thursday, and both organizations expressed concern over lack of progress in the amendment of the Electoral Act by the National Assembly. At that meeting on Thursday, the two groups also expressed fears that the credibility of the 2027 general election will be eroded if the reform of the Electoral Act is not achieved through. If the reform of the electoral system is not achieved via the amendment of the Electoral Act, they are insisting that the National Assembly must up the tempo in terms of quickening the pace for the amendment of the Electoral Act.
So what we are here to do is to look at the recommendations that flowed from the overall mission that were contained in the final report of the mission back in 2023. And we are very happy to see that there has been very significant progress against these recommendations. We recognize that there are certain time constraints, both in terms of judicial reform as well as administrative reform, and of course constitutional reform, which is somewhat more difficult. But we are making all of these recommendations against international standards that the EU, that Nigeria, that most countries have signed up to. And so we are part of an overall international election observation ecosystem that has really served to buttress democracy, to support democracy, not just here in Nigeria, not just in Africa, but across the world. And in Europe as well. And I'm happy to say, as an Irishman, we've had Nigerian election observation teams in Ireland for our presidential election, and we welcome them, we warmly welcome them and their constructive observations. And we are here in that same spirit, Professor, as part of our follow-up mission. So INEC has obviously carried out its own review of the 2023 elections, and we'll be looking forward to hearing what you have to report on the recommendations and the follow-up and implementation of those recommendations since 2023. There are specific areas that require legislative action that I've referred to in my opening comments, and we'd be delighted as a team to hear from you about what progress has been made and what concerns you have about obstacles in the future, and particularly around constitutional change, which is obviously a little bit more difficult.
Your 2023 report made 23 recommendations, out of which 8, that is 34.8%, require action by INEC, of which only 1 recommendation is listed as priority. The remaining 15 recommendations, that is 65.2%, out of which 5 were categorized as priority, require action by the executive, legislature, and the judiciary, political parties, and multiple stakeholders such as civil society organizations, the media, and professional bodies. The Commission has carefully considered all the 8 recommendations specifically addressed to us in your report. Action has been taken on aspects of the recommendations that only require administrative action to implement. Similarly, action is being taken on cross-cutting recommendations that require collective action between INEC and other bodies and stakeholders, while waiting for the conclusion of the ongoing legal review by the National Assembly on the recommendations that require legislative intervention. To this end, the Commission has prepared a detailed response to each of the 8 direct observations which we shared with you at this meeting. I must add that your recommendations, along with similar reports from other national and international election observers, were the subject of wide-ranging consultations with critical institutions and stakeholders during our own review of the 2023 general election. The review report contains 142 recommendations for electoral reform. In addition, the Commission has published our main 2023 general election report over a year ago. The main report for the election, as well as our review reports, are already available from our website.
So pressures on the National Assembly to expedite action on amendment of the Electoral Act, an amendment that has missed targets the National Assembly set for itself. The fear is that if it eventually comes, I said, if they may claim that indeed it's too close to the next election and so may not take effect. But let's stay with the National Assembly and issues emanating from the Federal High Court in Abuja has restrained the National Assembly, its Speaker and the clerk, as well as opposition parties in the House of Representatives, from removing the minority leader of the House of Representatives, Kingsley Chinda, without recourse to rules guiding the House. In an ex parte motion filed before the Federal High Court in Abuja, Kingsley Chinda claimed that there are attempts to remove him as minority leader in the House of Representatives on account of his closeness with the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Nyesom Wike. Chinda said he can only be removed from his position by majority members of the House in session when properly constituted. The court restrained the respondents in the suit from removing Chinda from office till the matter has been argued and ruled. Okay, let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll continue to review Nigeria's challenges towards achieving nationhood in our discourse. Do stay with us.
Rich citizens don't speak up. They make their money quietly. I mean, the other time I was doing my taxes at FCTRS, and I was just discussing with them. They tell me that what they see in people's accounts, if they would act on that, the billions that people are sitting on in this Abuja and even beyond, you know, so rich people will not speak
It's
up.
about the numbers.
But then again, the point then is this. Number one, I wanted to clarify, number one, the government is not taxing people more. If nothing, the government is taxing people less. And we even intend to tax people less. But the FRS is getting more efficient. And of course, there's a lot of technology coming into place in many places. Just over the weekend, I saw a place like FAN, which is Federal Aviation. They said that, look, from this morning, they are not taking any cash anymore. So when you're driving in, that idea of giving them cash at the toll booth or going to their lounge and giving them cash, no more. So everybody is bringing in technology, and therefore, all we needed to do is get a bit more serious, and you see that this money.
You said they're not taxing citizens more. Immigration service increasing passport fees and all that. Customs introducing 4% free on board.
Which was removed. The
after pressures,
free on board was removed. The 5% surcharge on fuel was removed. That tells you there's a government that listens.
Even on telecoms,
the government,
yes,
it was also removed. It was also suspended. You're talking about the government that listens. You know, of course, we live in the social media. I keep on saying this every time I come on TV. Clearly, this government does not intend to tax people more, but intends to get more efficient with taxation. Intends to also ensure that those who are really making the money in the society are taxed more by, you know, the use of technology. And so everybody should brace for that. But for those who are people who are earning 1 million naira per annum and below in this country should go tax-free, zero, by January 2026. That's the idea. Any business turning over 50 million naira and below, which is 4 million naira turnover every month, nobody should come near you for taxes, not even VAT. You know, it's a lot easier than obtains in many other countries, even here in Africa.
65 years after Nigeria's independence, the country still grapples with the right form of governance structure that best suits her multi-ethnic society. From the various constitutions adopted during the colonial administration to those voted by the people after independence, the leadership experiment continues to date. To put this in perspective, Nigeria has operated about 9 constitutions before and after independence. A look at these documents shows that varying positions, especially the country's governance model, largely contributed to the several changes to the constitutions over the years. It began with the 1914 colonial constitution that amalgamated the southern and northern protectorate into a single colony. Then came the 1922 Clifford Constitution, followed by the 1946 Arthur Richards Constitution, the 1951 John Macpherson Constitution, 1954 Oliver Littleton Constitution, and the 1960 Independence Constitution. 1963 marked a significant shift with the adoption of the Republican Constitution, consolidating Nigeria's regional federal structure. The next was the 1979 Constitution, which marked Nigerians' departure from the parliamentary system to the presidential system, with the adoption of the Presidential Constitution, which ushered in the Second Republic. That constitution provided a legal framework of power sharing between the federal and subnationals after the regional system collapsed in 1967 with the creation of 12 states. Since then, there have been a few constitutional conferences which did not materialize into much until the 1999 Constitution that established the Fourth Republic. That constitution has gone through several amendments to date. And so, 65 years after becoming a sovereign state, Nigeria is still grappling with what governance system is best suited for its diversity and will guarantee rapid economic growth. Incidentally, this 65th independence anniversary coincides with the 10th National Assembly's constitution review process. A look at the volume of proposals received and the various demands put forward by Nigerians from different ethnic backgrounds tells the story of a country still battling to get its governance structure right. Dominant issues in the submitted proposals include the creation of additional states, devolution of powers, decentralization of the police, the creation of special seats for women, among other issues. These submissions, particularly that of state creation, betrays a long-standing mistrust by minority groups who do not want to be subsumed under a regional system where they fear they will be dominated and their interests treated as secondary.
Once people feel and see leadership and the things any government does as for everybody rather than for a section, they'll buy into that government. The agitations will reduce because the decisions, the policies are not sectionalized. Rather, they are nationalized policies. We have not seen ourselves as one entity. People still pushing the wedge of division across 3 major lines: ethnic lines, religious lines, and class divides.
Even the country's current system of government is in contention. While many are in tune with the current presidential system with a bicameral legislature, others are clamoring for a return to the parliamentary system to curb waste and duplication. All these highlight the fault lines about the current governance structure.
The best would have been for each region, draft what you propose as constitution, each region. We have 6 regions, we have 6 documents, we'll bring it together and set up a technical committee that will review that the 6 and bring up a proper constitution.
Against efforts by successive governments and the current administration to keep the country united, the people's demands are clear: a homegrown government structure that accommodates all the interests, values, and aspirations of Nigeria's diverse ethnic nationalities, a nation of equal rights, opportunities, and a representation through a credible and transparent election process.
No human needs or desire can ever be met Not anywhere in the world. The best any leader can do is to manage the situation by leading with inclusiveness. Once people feel and see leadership and the things any government does as for everybody rather than for a section, they'll buy into that government. The agitations will reduce because the decisions, the policies are not sectionalized. Rather, they are nationalized policies.
This is what the Goodluck Jonathan 2014 National Conference attempted to address. But that document has been left to rot, with the National Assembly preferring to expend billions of naira on endless constitution reviews. The 65th anniversary may be a golden opportunity to begin this discussion.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's welcome our guest, Dr. Godnose Igali, Chairman, Pan Niger Delta Forum. He joins us virtually from Benin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you. Nigeria 65. Coincidentally, you were born in 1960 or so, slightly earlier, April, I guess.
While you are announcing my age publicly on national television.
It's worthy, it's a privilege and something of noteworthy to be born in the same year with Nigeria. So pardon us, but of course, let's start from there.
That's okay.
Yeah, recently you were at National Institute of International Affairs in Lagos, and it's all about Nigeria and Africa finding its feet among the Committee of Nations as indeed global politics continue. Let's start from the position you took and your conclusions on your lecture there. Africa, Nigeria, and its resources, and getting involved directly in not just mining but processing.
Well, I thank you very much again for having me. And let me say that I hold a position that first and foremost, we congratulate our country for 65 years. And well, Nigeria and Africa is not only about mineral resources. The point of view, and I thank the Nigerian Minister of International Affairs for giving me the privilege of being the Debo guest speaker on his new foreign policy series. And we spoke about why Africans should have hope that the continent has a future in global geopolitics. And we looked at it from the point of view, first, from the fact that despite our challenges and despite the problems of nation building, which many of our countries are grappling with, we held the position that Africa has a lot of relevance in the world from very many perspectives. From the demographic perspective, the fact that our median age compared to the global average, which is about 38 years, we are about 24 years in Africa. Nigeria's case is 19.8 years, which means the population is still Gen Z and maybe Gen Alpha, quite a young, dynamic, and skilled population. And if our government continues to invest in education, we have the possibility of providing a great global resource in terms of human power, human capital around the world in the next years to come. But apart from that is the endowment of the continent with critical natural resources. At present, almost every critical mineral resource, Africa has the leading edge in the world. So on that, the world will need us. Already we see there's a kind of something similar to the Rush for Africa and the Berlin Conference kind of arrangement, because every part of the world is coming to Africa to look for us because of the natural resources which we have, which are critical for the next fourth industrial revolution.
Now, almost every world power has a forum with Africa. China-African Cooperation
Yes.
Forum, Franco-African Summit, Russian, even Japanese and even Koreans. So they're opening us these frontiers in search of these mineral resources.
The Indians, the Saudis, everybody, because first Africa has always played a critical role in industrial growth of the world. Europe is where it is before today, during the past 400 years, because of the effort of African human capital in terms of slaves who went into the New World to work in plantations and provide the raw material for the industries. When the Industrial Revolution started again, they turned to what they call legitimate trade, and it was the natural resources of Africa, the rubber, the palm oil, the cotton and other resources that provided the raw materials, the cocoa and so on for the industrial growth of Europe, the zinc, the tin, and other metals.
So the Industrial Revolution in Europe was powered by African resources and labor skills.
Well, labor skills at the time, we may not call them skilled, or mostly unskilled, but skilled in terms of agriculture, because it was Africans that manned the plantations. Europeans supervised them, but the trans-African slave trade, let's also know that there was a positive value in the sense that Africa contributed in a major way to global industrial growth, in that it was the African workers that went to Latin America, went to the United States of America and so on, to bring about agricultural output, which were needed for the industries. And later, when Europe left slave trade and came to emphasize on natural products and the products from the ground, it was also Africa that supplied, mainly Africa that supplied what was needed. So we've always been there. But in this case now, for the fourth industrial revolution, the world has seen that the critical minerals, cobalt, bauxite, lithium, uranium, and so on, the main gold and other ones which are ornamental, but for the industrial needs of the world, the main critical minerals are in Africa. Time may not give us the opportunity to go into details, but what the world needs now to get into particular artificial intelligence, renewable energy, solar panels, and so on, is found in Africa. And that is why all these other countries, the plethora of partnerships with African countries are taking place. And even the Saudis and others who found themselves late in the day are rushing to Africa. And that's why last 2 years, we had the Saudi-Africa summits. And we've had summits with almost every part of the world. Nobody wants to be left out of Africa. So the continent might have been described as a dark continent, but now we are showing to have a great future. And coming down to our country, Nigeria, the future of Nigeria, 2 areas: agriculture, where we have vast arable land, and all the land is well drained. There's a good river system, and there's good river system and good weather in Nigeria for massive agriculture, that we can potentially be the net exporter of food to the entire world if we focus and do the right things. The other thing is natural resources. We have almost every essential mineral in Nigeria, and every part of Nigeria has essential minerals. And that is going to put Nigeria critically in the coming decades in the global economic and geopolitical architecture of the world. And this gives us a great hope. And that is why we encourage our government to continue to emphasize on vocational, technical, scientific education to prepare our youth to be able to man the next industrial stage that is coming, and also to put the right regulatory environment to ensure that it's not like the case of oil and gas, where we export everything we have until lately that we're beginning to process what we have.
Okay, processing what we have, it has remained a challenge. In the 60s, 70s, we remained exporters of raw materials. Today, we are still exporting them, and unfortunately, even in lower quantity. Think of the quantity of cocoa granite, even crude oil we were exporting in the 70s, and the quantity we're exporting today. So there's a decrease in volume of export, and we have been unable to even start processing here. It's twin a problem for us.
Well, we are not being productive in terms of we are not being smart in our production processes. What had happened in the 60s and from the colonial period into the 60s was the fact that we could still produce agricultural produce and export that. We did not have the wherewithal to process them. But from the 70s, 80s, there has been a little bit of domestic industrial production, and which government should encourage more and more. We cannot be exporting what we it's absurd to export crude items out of the country, then you import back what has been processed. I think a time has come when we should be able to export only finished as much as possible. Majority of what we export should not be raw, but should be what has been processed, what has been beneficiated with added value. We've created jobs, we've created economic activities for our people so that the benefit of what we produce can come back to us. Look at the case of crude oil, which since 1958, we have been exporting out of Nigeria, a little bit of domestic refinery in Port Harcourt, in Warri and Kaduna, all of which are broken down. We have not been able to revive for a long time. Now we have a local processor or producer, the Dangote refinery, and the many other smaller refineries. I think it's important that we, at this stage, be able to encourage more of processing of our crude, processing of our gas resources into petrochemicals, and exporting them out of the country. We should be able to, the same way we should do for solid minerals. Nigerians were quite glad when we heard that Mr. President commissioned a lithium plant in Nasarawa State through the Vice President the other day. And those are the kind of things we want to hear. So if we have bitumen, if we have cobalt, if we have barite, we have all these resources, we should not export the primary products. We should be able to export something that will have added value, create jobs. The Dangote refinery assets of that nature, I think BUA is building a refinery in Akwa Ibom State, and there are other refineries. Aradel is building another refinery. In fact, Dangote is talking with us in Bayelsa State for him to do something in Bayelsa, and we're quite glad at that. He visited Bayelsa in June, and we hope that that will bear fruit and something can take place also in Bayelsa, in addition to what he has in Lagos. These forms of processing of raw materials should be protected by the government.
And the Dangote refinery comes to mind. You talked about encouraging local processing of raw materials for decades or for many years. Yes, if not decades. So we are importing even finished product. And now we have a refinery in Nigeria that is exporting refined products. It didn't sound real for some few years ago. Well, some people have said perhaps Nigeria has a responsibility to protect that industry and go beyond that, encouraging more to come into play in the light of issues going on there in the industry with Dangote versus Nupen, Dangote versus Pengassin and all that.
Well, no, first and foremost, I went with my governor to visit the Dangote refinery some few months ago. It was a full-day tour because the place is a whole community. And we were amazed at what they do. and what they are doing, and we congratulate them for that effort, that an African can build that kind of structure, which even many governments around the world cannot do. For his products to enter into the United States or to enter into Saudi Arabia and to enter into Europe, it means that they have the highest quality around the world. And I had an interesting experience in Lagos 2 weeks ago. When the driver carried me, was about to buy fuel. We saw a filling station. I told him to buy, and he said, no, that, okay, this is imported fuel. The next filling station sells Dangote. It doesn't burn as fast. So it means that the products have value, even for our people. But so we congratulate him. But it shows what we can do. And there are many Dangotes around Africa. If you read out my lecture, the lecture emphasized, and I mentioned the names of about 20 entrepreneurs like Dangote around different African countries. And my view is that, and it appears to be a view of many Nigerians, our governments should encourage people like that to go into partnership, and our governments must take primary responsibility to protect these industries. If one man can do that, or a collection of people can do that, and we should encourage them, because it is what they do that will attract other Nigerians and attract even foreigners to invest in our natural resources, not to carry them out of the country. Look, 21st century, we should not be doing that. But again, government also has a duty to protect the workers and the industry from practices that can hold people ransom. And what government needs to do is to ensure greater regulatory oversight over the industry, over solid minerals, to ensure that Nigerian workers are protected, but not also at the detriment of the investors. So there is a balance that must be created by government. And there are other associations like NECA, Nigerian Employers Consultative Assembly, Manufacturer Association of Nigeria. All of them must put hands together with government to encourage dialogue. Dialogue and the idea of threats will not work. It will not help the industry. If an industry that is backed, or any industry, whether solid minerals or oil and gas, that is backed by threats and threats of close downs, will not help in terms of promoting and protecting investments. So what government has to do is to create a platform for constructive engagement between the investors and the workers and other people in the value chain of the particular industry. So in the case of Dangote, we've read recently about Nupeng, about Benson, about Dapman. I'm not an expert in those areas, but as a very senior Nigerian and a concerned Nigerian, my one's advice would be that government should show we should not wait until the problem occurs. These things would have built up over time. So there should be, knowing that our future is in our solid minerals, there should be a robust platform by the regulatory authorities, the Federal Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Finance, like we had now, the National Security Advisor and so on, to have a forum where they can have and anticipate problems and solve them, to ensure that the Nigerian workers, the citizens of Nigeria who work in those industries, are protected. But more importantly, that these industries, these assets, where what government cannot do and state governments cannot do, one individual has done them, are not allowed to suffer. If not, what will be the incentive for anybody to go and build? If when you build, you have a lot of problems, you are running to Abuja for meetings upon meetings, it's expensive to the economy. The economy cannot take it. I'm sure the days of now, thank God there is some respite, and we congratulate the federal government for coming in on time to give some respite to it. Nigerians can now have a sigh of relief, but then there should be anticipatory approach to these issues.
Kind of early warning system.
Well, the early warning systems exist, and for something like Dangote's industry, which is a $20 billion outfit in that place, it should not be, government's attention should not be scant. And we also had the cases of where Dangote had to be importing crude from America, which is quite unbelievable. But I believe government will be able to address that matter, because we've been reading this morning that crude production has stabilized. We are doing almost
And
our
even
OPEC
the
quota.
naira for crude that was stopped,
Yes.
Dangote resorted to
Well,
selling in dollars,
that
and
is terrible.
NNPC responded.
Dangote should not export one drop of crude from outside Nigeria. You see, the good thing about industries like Dangote's industry is that it is outside OPEC. OPEC is talking about crude production for you to export. They give you a quota to meet your export quota. But if you are producing for domestic industry, it is allowed by OPEC. So with more refineries coming up, Nigeria will become not an exporter of crude alone, but become a major, one of the world's leading exporter of finished products.
But then we
And
must
thereby,
ramp up production of crude oil. We must do that to achieve this aim.
That's why, I wear another cap, although I'm not wearing any cap today, but I'm also national chairman of Pandef. And sometimes when I read in the papers, this morning when I read what NNPC said, that they've been able to jack up production. We thank Mr. President, yes. We thank NUPRC, yes. But they did not thank the communities. We, the people of the Niger Delta, have ensured stability in the industry. We have ensured peace in our communities to allow the crew to go without the disruptions and the economic sabotage. So the communities too have played a major role. And in this kind of scenario, government must be able to allow people like Dangote buy, not only Dangote, but today Dangote is the one that has the big refinery, so we'll keep calling his name. But so many others are coming up. In Bayelsa, we have what we call Ezekiel Modular Refinery. And we must have a lot of these modular refineries. And I challenged Dangote once. I said, Alaji, you build in Lagos. He said, yes, we will come to the Niger Delta. Lagos provided the ambience at the time. Okay, now he's coming to Bayelsa.
Bua is already in the Niger Delta in Akwa Ibom.
Yeah, Bua is in Akwa. Yes, many others are coming up. So that's why we are interested that let crude and more companies come to the Niger Delta to produce and also process their products and export. Besides, the Niger Delta is very close to East Africa and Southern Africa. We can easily export our products, and we are coastal states. We can export the rest of West Africa. But what is important, government must protect the Dangote industry. Government must protect these kinds of industries so that they become national assets that must be given special attention. That's the point that I hasten to make, that must be given national attention so that we don't wait until problems happen and workers, their nerves are raised and they say, oh no, we are going to shut down either supply of crude or supply of gas or whatever, or we are going to the issues of loading. I think that there should be more of, we look into the future and not only early warning signals, but take steps, robust steps to prevent such disruptions, to encourage more people so they don't carry their money to go and keep in banks abroad or to invest in stocks and bonds abroad, but they can put their money in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
That is what people like us think. And that was the position I took in that lecture, which I delivered, not only for Nigeria, but for all of Africa, that African governments must have an understanding.
And even target diaspora investments that are huge.
Well, yes, our diaspora will come with their money. They will not keep them in the banks in the countries where they live. But if these industries, when they put their money, and if then they see that there is a lot of conflict in our country, workers are not happy with the investors. The investors feel that people are sabotaging them. How do you see, how ridiculous is it that Dangote has to import crude from outside Nigeria? I mean, it's an act of absurdity.
Okay.
What we produce. So I think it is time that our government It's because, mind you, the natural resource sector is under the federal government. The federal government, and thank God President Tinubu is on the saddle, is those he has put in charge should take conscious steps, very active steps to protect such industries. Whether it is BUA that is doing it, or it is as Dr. Irwani in Bayelsa doing it, they should be protected from such things and allowed to employ people. We heard that Dangote sacked 800 people. Thank God they've agreed to take them back. But that place has thousands of Nigerian workers.
Okay.
And these Nigerian workers should be allowed to work.
And more persons coming in, Bello Sajia and others meeting the president saying we are going into the downstream. Good news, but there's one point you raised. Perhaps you don't have more time.
Yes.
But it's a takeaway for those in authority, especially in the petroleum sector. OPEC production level is about export, not for local refining. There's Dangote, there's BUA coming up. There are several refineries, modular refineries. We need feedstock for them, and the best way we can do it is to ramp up production, not minding OPEC production level, to give them that feedstock. But as we close now, your quick reaction.
Yeah. See, no, OPEC gives you the possibility of sitting down with them and showing your domestic needs. Crude production for domestic needs.
Okay.
So they know, the people in the industry know this better than us. And we can, look, we've told Mr. President, and in one of the statements by Pandef, we said, Mr. President, we can go up to 3 million barrels. We in the Niger Delta are ready, as long as government will show more concern for the environment of the Niger Delta and ensure that global environmental standards are met with the new possibilities of production. As long as government is ready to continue to show more robust action in terms of the infrastructure needs of the communities, and also allow more people from Niger Delta not to be observers, but to be people in the industry.
Is the federal government not doing that through its actions in Ogoni land of recent?
Ogoni is just a little part of the Niger Delta.
At least a starting point.
Even Ogoni is still small, and we ask particularly for the environment. There must be environmental remediation all over the Niger Delta, more environmental remediation, and also in the participation in the oil industry, in the management of the oil industry. The top echelons of the NNPC, how many people from Niger Delta do you have? We need more of our people there. And we need more of our people to have the possibility to participate also in downstream. And now some people are getting to upstream, also upstream and downstream, and other aspects of the oil industry. We were excluded before, but gradually we are coming in, and we hope this will be sustained.
Maybe we expect communities, even state governments in the Niger Delta to bid for oil block licenses. Some people from the Niger Delta are already active.
Yeah, well, they should do that, yes. I agree with you entirely on that. But what is important for me is the fact that our government has to take more robust action. I don't like when we say these things. Some people tell us, oh, but the other governments were there. No, government is a continuum. One government does its part. When another government is there, they must continue from where others have stopped. So the idea of saying, well, this is not this government. Nobody is accusing this government that this government has not done its part. What we are saying, governance continues. So when these problems, Dangote refinery, after all, came on stream during the time of President Tinubu, and it to go down on record of this country to his credit, it was from Buhari coming into Tinubu that this Dangote refinery is now on. So it is the duty of the present Tinubu government to take every measure to protect the Dangote refinery and protect the Nigerian workers at the same time by taking actions that are intentional, because, and more of these people that come into the industry must be protected well to serve Nigeria and be able to ramp up our economy. We have to stop this regime of exporting primary products, be it natural mineral resources or oil and gas.
Okay, it's good you ended on that strong point. Process your raw materials for higher revenue, not just for Nigeria, but for Africa. I have to thank you so much, Doctor.
Job creation. Please don't forget job creation.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Revenue and job creation.
Yeah.
Create job for our people.
Processing of these raw materials throws up jobs in the process. Yes,
Thank
good.
you.
Well noted. Thank you so much, Dr. Godnose Igali, Chairman Pandef, author, political scientist, career diplomat, and a statesman. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for today. And for the week, we'll resume on Monday with some other pertinent issues with guests, also weighing in on them. My name is Amechi Anapwe. Have a good time.